Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. So it looks like a deja vu all over again from approximately 2 weeks ago. I woke up this morning and as usual, I catch up on some news and hey presto, some articles pop up. Some of them very interesting, but this one caught my attention yet again. So the title of the article reads, UK household urged to stockpile food and water now for Russian attack. Only literally 2 weeks ago, I've done a video where there was a load of articles popping out from all sorts of news outlets telling us that the Brits were urged to prepare. We've been told to have like 3 days worth of kits, that kind of thing. But we discussed on the video, guys, that in fact nobody really told us. It's just been literally just all over the news. And we thought obviously somebody trying to push the agenda. Nonetheless, this one caught my eye because there's a little bit more, not say a transparency, but there's a little bit of a different angle. And again, guys, when things like this happening, it gets you thinking, okay, they do want us to prepare. This is inevitable because there's loads of other articles came out today that are relevant to our country's security, that kind of thing. And I probably don't blame them for trying to push this forward. But anyway, whether they before, guys, nobody actually told us to prepare. It was just all over the news. Now there is a former defense minister warned people across the UK to stockpile now for the Russian attack. So Tobias Ellwood, who was a captain of the British Army before becoming a Conservative MP. So now basically the article goes on saying they don't want to confuse and panic the people, but they want people to prepare. And again, they're still, of course, mentioning this 72-hour without, 72-hour preparedness. But the words again, 72 hours without the outside help. Well, let's be fair. We already discussed and laughed at the 72-hour thing. And now it's the outside help that makes me giggle. Because let's be frank, if something really happens, there's going to be no help. Okay, no after 72 hours, probably not after 72 weeks. We're going to be there by ourselves. But anyway, so he moves on and saying that they found some information, that kind of thing, that the Russia would prepare so-called the grey zone attack, designed to basically cripple our country without traditional methods. So for any of you who is potentially unaware what the grey zone method is, this is a definition, okay? So the grey zone attack is an action by the state or group that falls between a peace and a war. It's aggressive and harmful, but not quite enough to trigger the full military response. It operates in a grey area between diplomacy and an open conflict. And the examples are, guys, we're looking at cyber attack, election interferences, that kind of thing. So basically any action that can cause our country to cripple. And again, obviously reading down below, they did find out that apparently the Russian ambassador to UK recently acknowledged that the sensor had been placed in the British waters. And this is what originally, guys, they talked about in the articles before without too much information. And I don't really want to go too much into details because we're not really, talking or discussing the war kind of thing. But basically, there's some sensors that have been found and there's some sensors that have been washed ashore, apparently there to monitor our nuke submarine protection movement, which is kind of critical to protect our island from, nuclear submarines and other kind of nuclear attacks. So basically, yes, he was worried that potentially they're going to be attacking underwater. And this is what originally, guys, when they talked about the being without the power, that kind of thing, obviously it was all aimed in that sort of area. But now they clarified this a little bit. So obviously, again, he's saying, well, how people can survive 72 hours without the outside help. And again, the suggestions are, which is still really basic one, but again, somewhat they actually included a little bit more of water. So his suggestion is 100 liters of clean water, non-perishable foods, candles and working torch, a battery-powered radio for news updates. Yeah, because you want to hear what this clown's got to say when shit hits the fan. But nonetheless, and then money in case the cash machine's going down, that kind of thing, and the basic first aid kit. Anyway, then goes on about talking that the councillors should be prepared because our small councillors are not basically have any sort of plans whatsoever. And we covered this before as well. To be fair, right, they don't even have a contingency plan for the food shortages. We covered this on the different videos before when the farmers were planning strikes, that kind of thing. The government itself doesn't have a contingency plan for the food supply, bearing in mind we're Ireland and we're now pretty much dependent, 70%, 50, 60, 70% on the import of food. So local councillors also don't have any plans in situ in case something happens. If we're just talking about the emergencies, right, let's talk about the water, for example, guys, and I'm going to bring up the example of recent Devon issue. I'm not sure whether you might have heard this or not. But literally on Monday, there were some problems with the burst water pipe from specific water company. And the people were without water until Thursday. So I think it's got resolved yesterday. So basically there was 4 days, okay? There was about 9,500 houses, homes have been affected without water. Schools had to shut down, that kind of usual thing. But the point is, the carnage was created for people fighting for water. The supermarkets got cleared within literally minutes. Okay, they were delivering water to distribute drinking water to the household, so people have to come to the square, whatever, to get some water. But people were literally fighting each other to get drinking water. This has happened like every year. There's been a big issue somewhere. This happens time and time again. I think last year was happened in Manchester, and it was the same thing. But people still don't learn. People still choose to fail to prepare. And I genuinely don't particularly like to do those kind of videos, especially with maybe somewhat scary subtitles. But I do know every time I bring out those videos, it reaches out the new audience who wants to be prepared. Because to be fair, guys, we understand that government is not going to be there to help you. If something happens, we're there on our own. So preparedness is really, really important. So again, in the end of this article as well, guys, they were talking about the different things that are happening, and the people in Europe have been told to prepare, the governments themselves doing some extra preparedness. But there's also some articles that came out recently about fact of how an ability of ourselves as UK as a country to protect ourselves from specific attacks. There's loads and loads of things out there, and it sort of all came out pretty much in the same day. So I do understand, okay, why they're pushing this. And I know some people might think that the government somewhat fear-mongering people into, potentially what's going to be happening. I'm now looking at a slightly different way. I'm also looking at what's potentially going to be inevitable, okay? Because anything so far has been happening, it's always going to be, or it always has been, is a 2030. We all know the 2030 agenda, but with the conflicts, everything else, and things that are going to be changing, it's always 2030. It's always 2030. But what thing I understand now that, I have been understanding this for a really, really long time. The reason they are basically pushing this upon us, because they know, okay, that the people in UK are very much unprepared, and they know that cannot help everybody if things happening. So we're literally there on ourselves. So they're trying to give you scenarios saying, well, are you able to look after your family for 3 days if something happens? Of course, guys, we know 3 days is nothing. So the preparedness point is to prepare for really more so 72 months rather than 72 hours. And I'm saying to you guys, I don't really like to do those kind of videos, but because it does reaches out the new audience, I feel it's very important to kind of spread this urge to prepare. And I totally understand, right? The preparedness does cost money. It does also take time, but you got to start somewhere. So if you're one of those people, guys, who haven't started or haven't really thought about preparedness, it is now really, really a good time to start. Even if you start a little bit of the time, slowly catch your monkey, it's easy to build up your resilience. And I know to prepare yourself for 72 months is not impossible, but it's going to take a long time. And it's a little bit more of a preparedness, guys. There's some articles or videos that, let's how to prepare for war. And they give you sort of advice of get your account straight, that kind of thing. None of these things actually will matter if the things truly go ahead. So anyway, I'll promise you, I will do a video, guys, on a long-term preparedness, save without power, that kind of thing. It's been kind of really busy times, but I will promise you I'll bring this out hopefully for you next week. So if you guys do like those kind of videos, if you're not a subscriber, don't forget, subscribe, put the bell notification, and obviously you won't miss that video. So anyway, guys, I do hope you have found this helpful. If you have, don't forget, please thumbs up. Again, subscribe if you're not a subscriber, and I shall see you in the next video. Bye-bye.